Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining the webinar. We will be discussing about how generative AI is being used today in patents for the entire patent process, from classification to patent prosecution and everything in between. My name is Samir Raiyani, and I'm the CEO of IP Author, which is the company that focuses on generative AI for patents and develops tools and applications for use of generative AI in patent drafting, patent prosecution, patent search, patent classification, the entire patent process. With me is John Miller. John is the global intellectual property leader at Chevron Oronite. He is also here in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, same as myself. We are very thankful to all of you for attending. I know for a lot of people here in the United States, it's the Juneteenth holiday. When we organized the webinar, we missed that little detail and therefore the date, but we went through with it because we had already sent out the invitations, etc. John is going to tell us more about himself in a couple of minutes, but I'll just briefly mention that he has been a fantastic partner to us at IP Author as we have gone down this journey of bringing generative AI to the world of patents. Today, we have a very packed agenda. We will be talking about John's background, his experience in the world of IP, what all he has done, how from research to IP, or the whole journey. He will be talking about that. He will also be talking about Oronite, the company where he manages the sprawling patent portfolio. We will also be talking about how generative AI is being used at Oronite, how they conceive of the use of generative AI. And we will also be talking about IP Author and its tools, how they work, what functionality they provide, how generative AI is evolving. We have a few slides that we'll be sharing throughout the conversation. So we will have those slides and demos for you. We will be interspersing our conversation with slides and demos. We are very excited about the potential and power of generative AI in the world of patents. At the same time, John is a pragmatist, as you will see when he speaks about various aspects of his work, as well as the use of technology. So you will hear a very well-reasoned viewpoint about generative AI technology in the world of IP from John. And you will see how when the conversation evolves, you'll get some clear idea about that. Very brief introduction here. You can see very brief introduction to ourselves, but I will turn it over to John for a more detailed introduction to himself and to Oronite. Over to you, John. I'll stop sharing. Go ahead and you can share your screen.
Great. Thanks, Samir, for the opportunity today. Much appreciated. And thanks to the folks who've joined. So just a little bit about myself. I started my journey quite some time ago. So I got a BS in organic chemistry back in 2001. Graduated in 2005 with a BS in organic chemistry, and then went on to get my PhD in organic chemistry at the University of Rochester in upstate New York. Graduated in 2010. And then after I left PhD, I went on to do a postdoc in organic and organometallic chemistry at Stanford down in South Bay, and was there for about a year and a half. And then at that point, I transitioned into the realm of IP. And I then joined a law firm in upstate New York, moved back to the East Coast. And there I sat for the patent bar and became a patent agent, doing all sorts of preparation and prosecution in a variety of areas. Drafted and prosecuted a number of applications for polymer chemistry, for biotech, for pharmaceutical, university clients, food chemistry, all sorts of stuff. And that was a very interesting experience, to say the least. And then in 2011, I joined Chevron as an IP analyst, working with our automotive engine oil group on IP strategy, freedom to operate analysis, handling invention disclosures in that space. And then in 2020, became the global IP manager for Chevron Oronite. And I manage a group of 5 folks, and our primary functions are to manage all of our freedom to operate work. And so we have quite a bit of that. We are a very product intensive business. So we probably do on the order of 200 to 300 patent freedom to operate studies per year. We also manage invention disclosures and patentability. And so I would say we probably file on the order of about 20 patent applications per year in the lubricant additive space. We also manage technology agreements, NDAs and NDNAs with customers, joint development agreements. Me and my folks work on IP strategy with all of our product lines. And we have a number of product lines. Anything where there's a lubricant in an engine, we touch on that area. So think about automotive engine oils, marine engines, transmission oils, gear oils, you name it. We do the chemistry that goes into those products. And then we also handle any opposition practice in Europe as well as IPR practice in the US. And so just to give you a little bit of sense of what we do here, whenever I first joined, I guess I was very naive in terms of, okay, I thought engine oil was just oil that you put in your car and it was just there to lubricate the engine. And it was just a product of the oil and gas industry. That was about it. Then came to learn that there was a lot of chemistry that went into the oil that you put in your engine. And so you can see by this graphic here, just a mock-up of a bottle of engine oil that you would just buy off the shelf, right, at Costco or Walmart or an auto parts store, in terms of putting it in your Toyota or BMW or whatever. And so you can look at the breakdown. So the majority of what is in there is base oil, but then there's 1 to 20% of what's called an additive package or a performance package. And that has a number of chemistries that we develop here at Oronite that go into the engine oil. And those chemistries, they provide a lot of functions that are necessary to make sure that your engine has longevity, that there's not buildup of deposits in the engine, that there's not significant wear on engine parts. And just to name a few, dispersants and detergents, they clean up deposits in the engine or they suspend them in the oil. Friction modifiers, they help minimize the wear and friction on engine parts, so they help keep a lubricant film. There's also anti-wear agents, antioxidants, corrosion inhibitors, just a number of various different chemistries that go in to make sure that your engine lasts a long time and that there's not deposit buildup on engine parts, so that you're also maintaining fuel economy in the engine. And additive packages can be anywhere from 5 different chemistries to 20 different chemistries that go into the engine oil. And so that's what we do here. We develop chemistry and we sell additive packages to oil companies that then blend finished oils, which get sold on the shelves in stores, or they're the factory fill oils that come in the car whenever you buy a new car. And so that's a little bit about Chevron Oronite, and I will send it back over to Samir.
Thank you. That's an excellent overview. Thank you. Really sets the stage for what we are going to talk about. This is not going to be a webinar just about engine oils. We are also going to talk about IP quite a bit. You already got a sense of the size of portfolio, the size of the team that John manages, and the types of work that the team does. So what we're going to do is now switch gears a little bit and focus more on generative AI, on patent classification of all the tools that John's team uses, how we have collaborated, etc. as well. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat window and you can send the questions there. You will try to answer them during the course of the conversation or towards the end so we can keep the conversation flowing. Let me switch over back to the slides. We wanted to, given that we are today talking about this, we already went through the introduction. What is IP Author? Let me briefly speak about what we do at IP Author. As I mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of IP Author. IP Author uses generative AI for patent-related capabilities, such as searching, classification, drafting, and office action response preparation. I'm a software engineer by training, so that's my background. But what is IP Author? So imagine a legal associate, somebody who is thorough, diligent, tireless, has encyclopedic knowledge, somebody who can just do pretty much everything that you need to support a legal function, especially in the area of patents. That's what IP author is. That's our vision. That's the mission. And it takes a few different forms. So IP author has these capabilities: patent drafting, patent search, patent classification. These are the three key capabilities. Our goal is to support the entire patent ecosystem, everything from conception of an idea all the way to licensing, as well as litigation support, etc. When we talk about the various tools that we have prepared, one is for patent classification, one is for searching, one is for drafting and office action response. And we'll be showing you very brief glimpses of each of these tools so that you know how they function. Okay, and how, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how they are utilized in an environment like Oronite. So let's talk briefly about use of generative AI in patent classification. Generative AI has been around for about 2.5 years now. We've been using it pretty much from day one. So one of the first, and by way of background, the IP author was basically incubated at a company called Dulcera. Dulcera is a company that works in patent search, classification, landscaping, and standard essential patents areas. Dulcera has been using AI for over 15 years. I was one of the founders. We've been using AI at Dulcera for a long time, starting with technologies like Word2Vec and transformers and so on. Patent classification, we have been doing it manually for decades now, taking patents, organizing them by patent classes, or organizing them by custom taxonomies that meet your business needs and so on. So let me show you what Gen AI-based patent classification looks like. So for example, here we have our platform that does the patent classification automatically. In this case, as you can see, the topic is physiological active peptides. And you can see that we have been able to create, using generative AI, a fairly detailed taxonomy. It's a very detailed taxonomy about the health benefits of such peptides, the inflammatory effects, the immunity benefits, etc., in various domains such as blood disorders, etc. So we have taken a collection of patents and non-patent literature, scientific articles, and organized them into this platform using generative AI. So everything from search to classification is all done using AI. This is the technology, this is the platform that was introduced at Oronite a few months ago. This is the platform that is being used at Oronite. So this is, as you can see, the way it starts is you take a collection of patents, then you filter them, classify and tag them, and then you organize them for review and further workflows. John, tell us a little bit more about how you are using it, how Oronite uses this platform today, how you see it being used in the future as well, how it benefits your organization, and so on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I guess before we started working with, we managed our patent database on quite an archaic system, I would say. I won't go into the details, but so we curate our own patent database in the lubricant space. And so what we do is we send out a large search string into the patent literature. It pulls a number of patents that are of interest to us, and we sort those, right, into our various databases that we want to keep, lubricants or fuels, for example. And so what we've done with Dulcera is we use AI to sort those. So we send out a search string, we get a number of results every couple of weeks. Those get put into the database and then they're sorted. So it'll tag them as this one should go to the lubricants database, this one should go to the fuels database, or this one should be moved to waste. And so AI, so they've trained on some of our historical data, and it'll take a first pass at where they believe those records should go. And that's really helpful because that removes a lot of manual work on my team. We did all that sorting record by record previously. And so the AI will take a first pass. It's pretty good in terms of its accuracy in determining which database it goes into. I would say that it's probably gotten to the point now where it's about 80 to 90% accurate in terms of which database it should go into, which removes a lot of manual labor, which is fantastic. And then after it's moved into one of those databases, we've also used AI to apply index terms that we've created over the years to then apply those index terms to the various patents. And so that, again, that used to be a very manual process for us, where somebody would have to go through and select which index terms should apply to each patent family. And now we have AI do all of that. And so I would still say that's improving over time. I would say that the AI probably is getting maybe 60 to 70% of those index terms correct. And so that again removes a lot of manual labor going through each and every one of those, applying index terms, and then making it live in our database. I'm really excited about the prospects of using this going forward. I think it's only going to get better over time as we train more data and provide definitions for the various index terms that we have. And so it provides a lot of benefits over other platforms, which are quite behind in terms of applying AI to their tools. Very excited for this journey.
Thank you, John. We can go into a lot of details about how we have refined these index terms, the classification process, and how we intend to make it even better over the next few weeks. But we want to cover ground on other topic areas also, so you can come back to it in a few minutes. In the meantime, Alex has a couple of questions. John, the first one is, how competitive is the oil chemistry field, and how many IP disputes are there, like litigations and non-patent entities, IPRs, et cetera, et cetera? Would you like to say a couple of words about that, please?
Sure. Yeah. In the lubricant additive space, there are 4 major players: Infinium, Lubrizol, and ourselves. So it's a relatively small industry, but the patent literature, I would say, is pretty active. I would say we manage lubricants database. We manage about 30 to 40,000 patent families going back 20 years or so. So it's a pretty crowded space. It's obviously an older industry. Lubricant additives have been around since the invention of the automobile, so it's a pretty crowded space. In terms of disputes, there's not a lot of disputes. In terms of litigation, I would say that the opposition practice in Europe is probably where the most activity happens, and we probably have a couple a year, and I would say that's probably the norm. A lot are challenged in Europe. I would say IPR is probably a little bit less, but I think in terms of litigation, it's few and far between.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Alex, for the question. So as you can, what you heard today, what you heard so far on the classification side is that generative AI, fairly new technology, 2 years old, is already having a significant impact on a very well-defined and mature workflow that John has. To me, that is somewhat mind-blowing, to be honest. I've been in the technology industry for almost 30 years now, and technologies don't develop and impact your life so quickly usually, like especially in an enterprise as large and as complex and as mature as Oronite. So that to us is very gratifying, and it's happened because of 2 reasons. One, John and his team are very forward-looking. They are extremely open to new ideas and able to adopt them quickly and do them with open eyes and maturity. And secondly, the technology is there. The technology does really work in these settings. So that to us is extremely exciting. But classification is the first step. The benefits accrue because you can do so much more now that your patents are classified and indexed correctly, nearly automatically. So to take advantage of this and take advantage of GenAI even further, we have developed patent searching capabilities that also use generative AI, that are also being used by the Oronite team. And what we are trying to do is get away from the complex keyword gymnastics that a lot of us who have been doing patent searching for a while are used to, like using class codes, using keywords, using concepts. All those types of things have to give way to something a little more intuitive. And so we have built a generative AI-based patent searching capabilities. I'll show you a very quick glimpse of our platform from a search perspective. So here is a very simple prior art search that actually was developed by my son. He basically searched for maglev related technologies. And of course, maglev has been around forever. We got a bunch of search results here. And as you can see, the search is really smart. You provide your invention disclosure. IP author automatically interprets what the problem is, what the solution is that is being developed, what the novelty is for this invention. And based on all of that, it automatically comes up with the top pieces of prior art, how similar they are to the invention, how different they are from the invention, explains why it believes that this is relevant or why this isn't. It highlights the relevant text from the document and shows you what is really going on with respect to this whole field. So it's all done in a very transparent way, so you don't have to worry about what are called hallucinations from large language models and things like that. The practical benefits of these are tremendous. For example, one of Europe's preeminent patent offices recently compared a bunch of Gen AI or AI-based patent search engines. And they identified IP Author as the best performing engine because we generated the highest number of X and A references for each of the 20 searches that they had conducted across various domains. And as you can see, pretty much 100% of the time, IP Author was able to produce at least an A reference, if not an X reference. And an X reference was produced about 2/3 of the time. This gets about 70% as good as human searching, but in a fraction of the time it takes for a human to do this search. So again, this technology is also being used at Oronite, and John can tell you a little bit more about how his team is using this technology and the types of benefits they get from the technology as well. John?
Yeah, thanks, Samir. Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, it was quite a manual effort to find prior art for new invention disclosures that come in. Somebody on my team is going to have to search the patent literature to see if an invention is novel. And that's a very labor-intensive process and could take somebody anywhere from a couple days to a week to determine if a new invention disclosure that came in is novel and inventive. And so what the platform does is it helps identify what the potential prior art is in that space, like Samir mentioned, in a fraction of the time. So it certainly cuts down significantly on patentability searches. So we can move to patent drafting sooner in the process. And that's certainly very helpful. And as he demoed there, you can put in what you envision as your main claim. It'll go out, it'll search based on the claim that you put in there, and it'll identify any potential prior art that's in that space. And that'll be listed on an IDS, of course, whenever you go out and you file your application. But I think obviously the major benefit there is time. Time is very valuable for the folks on my team. It helps us get to a decision on whether or not to file a patent application quicker. And that's really the big benefit there.
Thank you, John. Going back to the classification, Alex had a question about how long does it take to fix misclassifications and time savings when you get 60-70% accuracy. Thoughts on that, John? So yeah, you can see the question.
That's obviously where we spend a lot of our time. We need to make sure that we get the index terms correct so that we can then, whenever we have a project, we can go in there and make sure that whenever we do a freedom to operate study or what have you, or a patentability study, that it pulls out the necessary patents. And so in terms of correcting the indexing, we have saved some time. I would say right now, maybe we're saving about 50% of the time that we used to spend on it. And hopefully over time, as the training matures, the definitions of our index terms, we provide those definitions of the index terms. I think the training will get better and we'll save even more time on that manual effort.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to add to that. I think the current system that we have implemented is basically the first pass. It involved very little human supervision. It was pretty much fully automated with some level of supervision, with some level of inputs as we plan to provide in the next coming versions. We are fairly confident we can get much higher level of time savings and quality improvements. We can already see that on some of the testing we are doing, which we haven't actually released to Oronite. These are internal tests that we have conducted on our team side, on the IP author side. So definitely there are lots of improvements coming down the road. Again, the exciting part here is that we are able to roll out systems rapidly with minimal amount of configuration/training and able to get like significant amount of savings to a fairly mature, complex process. These index terms are very specialized. They are very much related to Oronite's business. They are not generic terms. They are not based on purely on IPC coding, etc. In addition, we are also looking at the nuance of the actual invention. So you can always do the coding. You can look at a patent and say, let's just tick off all the boxes that this patent checks. But that's not what we are doing here. What we are doing is, what is really the essence of this patent? That's what we are trying to identify. So that is where some of the beauty of this technology lies, and we are really excited about that. Switching gears at this point. So we have another few minutes here to discuss some of the other aspects of the platform. So classification, searching, very important pieces of the IP function within a corporate environment, especially as large as Chevron or Oronite. But then the biggest expense of a patent department is patent drafting, harvesting the inventions, creating patent applications, responding to office actions, etc. IP author, as the name suggests, has a solution for that, which is for patent drafting and office action response preparation. And it is very tightly linked with the searching capabilities. And this is what the technology looks like. So I will briefly show you what the platform looks like, and we will go into a little bit more detail after that.
Yeah, and Samir, I guess while you're switching gears, I guess one more thing. I think the platform is very useful in terms of invalidity work as well. Obviously, or opposition practice in terms of if you want to oppose a patent in Europe or if you're doing an invalidity study. The platform is really great at identifying prior art that forms the basis of an invalidity opinion or the basis for an opposition if you want to oppose a patent in Europe. And so the platform is by far the most powerful of the ones that I've used in terms of identifying what that art is. And so that's been a great time saver for us as well.
Thank you. That's high praise, obviously, because thank you, John. We are really excited. Patent searching has been around forever, especially technology-driven patent searching has been around for 30, 40 years now. And yet we are able to make dramatic improvements to such a mature technology and process. That is extremely gratifying to us. On the other hand, drafting an office action is new. AI, or the only tools, the only technology that has come into this space since what are the 1400s or 1500s when the first patents were drafted, is Microsoft Word, like word processing. But what we are doing with generative AI is fundamentally very novel and very interesting. And IP Author has been a pioneer in this space. We have had a lot of success. Hundreds of companies, law firms are using the platform for this purpose. So the way the platform works, which I briefly already showed you, but now we will look at it from a patent drafting perspective. And I'll just pick one of these inventions that we have already drafted a patent application for. So the invention disclosure is input into the platform, and the invention disclosure is provided here. This is a sample, like a dummy disclosure, a sample disclosure, not dummy, but a sample disclosure. It is entered into the system. The platform interprets the problem, the solution, the novelty, as we explained earlier, and thereafter you can either add your own claims to this system, or the AI will generate its own claims. Once the claims are done, you can modify them, you can edit them as you want, you can make all sorts of improvements and changes to the prompts. You can adapt them to your writing style, you can adapt them to your particular organization's boilerplate templates, etc., etc. Thereafter, you add the diagrams. In this case, we did not add any diagrams to the invention disclosure. And finally, you get a patent application. This process is very quick. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to go from this end to this end. Also, in addition, if you have done your prior art search, the invention will take that into account and make sure that the claims that are written work around the prior art that was cited, that was discovered through the search capability of the platform itself. So you go from basically your idea to a patent application draft within a matter of minutes, with a really high quality search thrown into the process as well. The tool generates a background, technical field, title, the claims, the drawings. It'll generate the flowcharts that you need to submit. It will generate block diagrams if necessary, and it will write the full detailed description for the patent application as well. And of course, the claims are added as appropriate with the abstract. So the whole process is fully automated, uses generative AI, allows you a lot of control. So you can go in and you can start modifying each of these aspects. So you can use AI, the AI assistant, to make modifications, and you can do it across your entire patent application, etc. This is how IP Author works for patent drafting. We also have an office action response module, which will generate the office action response. It will provide the rejection summary. It will do the examiner interpretation. This was an incomplete process. So let me look at one that was completed. Yeah. So here you can basically get the office action from the patent office. The platform will summarize the office action in a very easy to understand manner for you to review quickly. Thereafter, it will interpret the examiner's objections and see whether those were accurate or not. So you can see whether for this particular claim, the prior art cited by the examiner, does it actually cover the invention, or does it actually cover the claim or not? So for example, here it's showing partially disclosed elements, while this element, according to the AI, was fully disclosed. But then the formula was not disclosed accurately at all by the prior art cited by the examiner. So all of this analysis is provided by the AI, after which it also suggests some strategies as to how you can respond to the office action, and finally creates the office action draft for you here, as you can see, with amendments, with arguments, with the appropriate claim changes, etc. as well. So this is, again, a process which would take you a few hours to conduct, but can be done pretty much automatically. Now, amongst various companies out there, a lot of this work is done by law firms, outside firms, etc. But at Chevron, a significant amount of this work gets done in-house as well. And so they are in the process of using this platform for a variety of use cases. John's team has a slightly different role. They are not the prosecution team, but they are also looking to use this platform. I'll turn it over to John for his views on how he thinks this will work best in the Oronite environment. John?
Yeah. Thanks, Samir. Yeah, I think this certainly will benefit us. So like Samir mentioned, on my team, we don't do the full preparation and prosecution. That's handled with our law department. What we do is, and where I think this will benefit us greatly, is providing a first pass of we'll call it an enhanced invention disclosure that we can then provide to our patent agents. And many companies, we get invention disclosures, And so I think this will be a very powerful tool in terms of going from here's our invention disclosure, they put in the background, they put in the problem solution, they put the data and all that sort of stuff. And so I think that's where it'll benefit us in terms of identifying what the closest prior art is in the space, based off of the claim that we want to pursue in that application. And I think it does a pretty good job of providing a first pass of something that we can then hand off to the folks in the legal department.
Thank you, John. These are some of the areas that we are working with Oronite. We cannot go into too much detail as to how the downstream work gets done, the off-section response, etc. But you got a sense of what the tool's capabilities are. I'll briefly speak to Wayne's question about privacy, security, how we isolate the large language model so that patent information doesn't leak, etc. So this is something, security and privacy. We work with lots of law firms, hundreds of law firms and corporations. And this is one of the first things that comes up. Fortunately, the partners that we have, the large language model providers, such as OpenAI, Google, have all provided us with zero data retention guarantees, which means that the request from our platform will hit the large language model and the response comes back. There is no storage of any information on their side. So when we work with their APIs, they do not store any of the information on their side. They do not use it for model training purposes. They do not look at it, nothing of that sort, which means that we have full control over how the LLM works from that perspective, from the privacy and security perspective. On our side, on the IP author side also, we have a very strong guarantee that we do not actually use this information for any purposes, any model training purposes, any tuning purposes. We do not look at this information at all. That has been our commitment, and that is why we have such a large user base at this point in time and so much usage of our platform as well. I'll take the other questions from Alex a little bit later because I do want to cover a couple more interesting topics. We have only a few minutes. Wanted to cover a couple of interesting topics. As I mentioned earlier, John and his team they experiment a lot. They use these tools. They are very innovative and open. At the same time, they are pragmatic. So I wanted to ask John to look at his crystal ball. I think you'll find it very useful what he has to share in terms of his view of how the technology, generative AI, how it is being used today and how it will evolve in the future, especially with respect to the patent function in organizations like Oronite and in the enterprise. John, over to you for your crystal ball gazing for this particular topic.
Yeah, and Samir, I think you had a slide around this, but I
Yes,
guess
I'll open it 1 second.
I guess I'll
have
just
it.
start. I think obviously one of the useful opportunities that exist are niche-based industries. For us or for pharmaceutical companies, for example, it would be very useful to integrate chemical structure. And that's something that, from what I understand from Samir, is a work in progress right now. So being able to not only interpret chemical structure from the prior art, from non-patent literature, but also to integrate those chemical structures into patent drafts. And so that's going to be something that will certainly greatly benefit chemical companies, pharma companies. You can also say the same for DNA sequences, or I think Samir has an example around antibodies and things that are going to be very industry specific. I think are going to be a great benefit to those industries. And right now, that's a work in progress. I think LLMs have gotten pretty good at obviously interpreting text, providing answers, and giving pretty good first pass at a first draft. But being able to integrate those aspects, I think, will be the next step that would be useful. I think also another thing is going to be being able to pull from, I hate to call it boilerplate information, a number of different aspects from, for example, previous application drafts from your company and integrating those aspects into the first draft. Typical ranges of components or typical, in our space, typical base oils that are used in finished lubricants, those sort of things, being able to go out, pull that language in and get an even better first draft of a patent application. So those are just a couple things that I can think of that would greatly benefit specifically us, but I'm sure that there's probably other examples that can be given in other industries that LLMs aren't necessarily good at today, but hopefully will improve in the future.
Yes, absolutely. These are some of the most active areas of development and improvements for IP authors. So, for example, as I was showing very briefly, we have added an antibody region extractor to IP author. By providing an antibody sequence, for example, we will have all the extracted regions like the framework regions and the CDRs and so on. So all of this information is automatically fed into the patent drafting or the search modules. So therefore, the downstream work gets done as effectively as possible. So you are relying on, we are basically taking all these interpretations and feeding it. Similarly, chemical structures, marker structures, these are some of the other improvements that we are making to the platform very rapidly and hope to bring it into the platform over the next quarter or so. In addition, the style matching, that is something that we have really made some progress with, where we are now able to really adapt and create style guides automatically using generative AI and then use them for downstream drafting purposes. So you may not know, or you may have an inkling. Some companies are different. Like some companies have very elaborate, very detailed guidelines for how each section, each line of a patent application should look for their own patent applications. But others may not have such style guides. We have been able to create such style guides for our clients using generative AI and then use those style guides in terms of adapting the patent application to those style guides. That process will get smoother, more intuitive, and more streamlined over the coming months as LLMs improve, as our platform improves as well. So that is really going to be very exciting because now you're not going to just, there was this gee-whiz element to patent drafting using generative AI a couple of years ago, where you could give some language and generate what looks like a patent claim. But now it's getting more real, where the patent claim looks like a patent claim you would have drafted if you have been writing patent applications in this area for a long time. So it's going to be fundamentally more interesting and more powerful as we go here. John, so from your perspective, one of the questions I always ask all the experts, such as yourself, is where do we think we are? Like, are we at the beginning of the internet where we were in, I don't know, the year 2000 or something like that, where we were using Netscape and stuff like that? Or are we somewhat further down the road with respect to this technology if we compare it for internet time?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think obviously it wasn't until a couple of years ago that there was obviously a big breakthrough in terms of LLMs. And then another step change with one of the more recent OpenAI models, I think provided another step change. My personal view right now is that probably any gains from here for quite some time are going to be incremental in nature. I think we're probably not at the beginning, but maybe somewhere in the middle. But I think probably any gains from here are going to be somewhat incremental. I think there's obviously going to be some, I know that you're working on structures, you're working on style, that sort of thing. Those are going to be tremendous benefits for those niche industries. And so there'll be maybe some step changes with those. But yeah, I think overall, we've made the big jumps with LLMs, and I think any sort of progress from here on out is going to be, at least for a while, is going to be incremental in nature.
Sounds good. I still feel that would allow us time to incorporate the technology into our workflows. So that it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's
You may hold a different view since you're ingrained in it every single day, but from an outsider's perspective, I think that's where
No,
I'm
I
at right
actually
now.
agree with you in terms of the overall, because the LLMs themselves seem to have run into the limit of how much training data they have available and things like that. So we have a couple of questions that we can take since we have a couple of minutes. John, we could talk about some of these future things as well, but let's take these questions. Let's address them. One question is, from Wayne is, what about helping inventors to invent? What are your thoughts on that, John? Obviously, the technology can be used. I'm sure inventors use it for identifying solutions to problems, etc.
Helping inventors invent.
Using
Yeah,
Gen
I think maybe there's some potential there in terms of finding white space in the patent literature. I think if folks in technology have an idea for a space that they want to operate in and would provide like a claim in terms of what those minimal elements are, I think it could probably benefit folks to see, what others have been doing in that space by identifying what the closest art is. So I think it'll probably be a benefit to folks who are involved in invention disclosures to determine whether or not their invention is patentable, and shift some of that work off of IP professionals to the folks that are ingrained in the technology every single day.
Makes sense. A couple of other questions that I'll just take up since we have a minute or so. And of course, you can reach out to us at support@ipauthor.com is the email address to use. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you for joining, but I'll answer a couple of questions. So Alex's question is, in the patent world, many patent attorneys use obscure terms or broad terms. This is something that we have really taken care of using generative AI, and we've got amazing results. The statistics are because we have been able to go past patentees, be able to interpret the claims in the prior art more cleverly, and be able to match prior art to the invention. So that's something we have been able to do, and we continue to be able to use it for searching, classification, and as well as for drafting purposes, to be honest. Also, in terms of the workflow we have is you conduct a search, then that search results are used to draft the claims. So if the invention is provided and the search results are provided to the claim drafting module, the claim drafting module will try to work around the prior art. So that is the current system design. It continues to improve. We will be providing more controls and more utility benefits on top. So there's lots of work being done on that side. Thank you for your questions, for your responses. Appreciate all your questions, Alex, Wayne, others. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Thank you, John. This was amazing. You've really opened up my mind as well as the audience's mind to the possibilities and the capabilities. I think people will take away from this that we are not in science fiction anymore. This technology is real. I'm sure people have been using ChatGPT, using more structured tools like IP Author, I'm sure can benefit them. And hopefully that message is clearly conveyed by John. Thank you all for joining, and have a wonderful day. We will be back with more webinars.
Yeah. Thanks, Samir. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.